Hello chess friends and welcome to Zarov's chess channel and welcome to our Garry Kasparov saga. So in this series we're following Garry Kasparov's life and his chess career, and we are back now in the 1983 Candidates Tournament where Garry Kasparov faced the top grandmaster Alexander Beliavsky. So this is now the quarterfinal stage. Alexander Beliavsky, really a great player. I've been told now by one of my subscribers, Kai Middleton, that Alexander Beliavsky, among many things, held the record that he won 9 games against undisputed world champions in chess, which is really incredible. Only Vasily Smyslov and Viktor Korchnoi managed to do that, not even Garry Kasparov. So he won games against 9 undisputed world champions. Really incredible accomplishment, and that's why I told you this, because I wanted to show you against whom really Garry Kasparov played, how great this guy Alexander Beliavsky is. So let's check out now the game. It has been now incredible game played by Alexander Beliavsky. I'm showing you this because I wanted to show you also this psychological aspect of the chess game. If you want to beat really anyone, you have to be on the attacking side. You don't just lean back and wait your opponent to attack you. You have to be on the attacking side if you want to win games in chess. So that's why I'm showing you this game in which Garry Kasparov, really the most talented player in 1983, got really under fire by Alexander Beliavsky. Here in this game, Alexander didn't give him an opportunity to breathe. He simply attacked him from point one, from move on, and this was a really incredible performance by the Ukrainian grandmasters. Let's check out now the game. As usually, we say round one and fight. So d4 played by Beliavsky, knight to f6, c4, e6, knight to c3. We have bishop to b4. The Nimzo Indian, and now e3. This is the same-ish setup by white, or this normal variation, where what we want to do is to play knight from g to e2. After potential a3, we want to have a reloading system. We want to recapture again with the knight, not with the pawn. And one of the best ways here for black to proceed is simply to castle. And now there is this move bishop to d3, which allows us again to play the move knight from g to e2, then f3, e4. So okay, in the game, Garry Kasparov played the move c5 and knight to f3 played by Beliavsky, which is also a good idea because knight to e2 doesn't bring you so much anymore, because c takes d4 could happen. After e takes d4, maybe now d5 is also an opportunity. Then you risk to have this isolated pawn, and now this knight is not really on a natural square. You want to have your knight on f3, but it's your choice. You can do whatever you like, whatever you in which line you feel better. Here Beliavsky played the move knight to f3. So maybe the main line could be here bishop takes c3. I think I would have taken the pawn, the knight here on c3, b takes c3, and now to play something like d6. d5 is not good in this particular line, because then you're undoubling your opponent's pawn, which was your idea in the first place, to create these weaknesses, the c3 weakness and c4 weakness. So that's why here in the game, Garry Kasparov played d5. Immediately he cracked the position in the center because his king is secured. Now Beliavsky also castles. So we have d takes c4, we have bishop to c4, and after c takes d4, e takes d4, Garry Kasparov has accomplished now position in which he created an isolated pawn here by white. And the funny thing is, in our previous analyzed game by Garry Kasparov, Garry played this great game without inaccuracies, mistakes, or blunders, where he had an isolated pawn. Here Alexander Beliavsky will also play a great performance with an isolated pawn. So I think these two videos combined are a good path how to play with an isolated pawn, although it can be a weakness in long term. So here after the move e takes d4, Garry plays the move b6. Knight to c6 is not so good. It seems that it could be a good idea, but after a3 and maybe bishop to e7 or bishop to d6, you see black can white can first of all break the position with immediate d5 pawn breakthrough. But I think rook to e1, maybe something like a6, and now bishop to g5, or maybe even bishop to f4, keeping really a normal development, gives white good opportunities here to play, because black has still developing problems. This bishop is blocked out. So far you see in this, even in this setups, the knights are on nice developing square, on normal squares, and now the bishops have also good activity. But as I said, after the move e takes d4, b6 was played by Garry Kasparov. He delays a little bit the position with the knight, and now Beliavsky played the move queen to e2. So he is basically saying, of course, if you don't want to challenge my knight on d4, I'm going to play queen to e2, and now I could have a support of the isolated pawn, which is the main idea when you face such positions. When you have the isolated pawn yourself, you have to support your pawn and try to improve the position of the pawn, try maybe a pawn breakthrough with d5. So that's the main goal from White's perspective. Here bishop to b7 played by Garry Kasparov, and now we see rook to d1, placing the queen, placing the rook on the same file like the queen. So that's why here bishop to c3 was played by Garry Kasparov. Again, an idea to create further weaknesses. What Garry probably hoped for here was b takes c3, and now after queen to c7 to play something like rook to c8, and then we would have a nice attack on the c3 pawn, but also we would have a nice deflection idea. Bishop takes f3. After g takes f3, the pawn structure would be weakened in front of the king, so you would be forced maybe to take with the queen, but now the bishop on c4 will be hanging. So this was Garry Kasparov's attacking idea, but now Beliavsky from this point on, he will simply attack. So he plays bishop to d3, sacrifices the pawn. He says, okay, you can grab the pawn, but if you grab the pawn, I'm getting some tempos, and now I'm going to create a nice bishop pair. And here Garry Kasparov accepts the challenge, plays queen to c3. We have bishop to b2, and now queen to c7. Here comes really the incredible part now of the game. Here, Alexander Beliavsky plays an an incredible move, which I wouldn't probably dare to play. He plays the move d5, sacrificing another pawn against Garry Kasparov. Great move. Let's see the possible continuation. This wasn't played in the game, but if you play knight to d5, of course you can play e takes d5, then bishop to f6 will happen, g takes f6, and you have really some weaknesses here. 4 weak pawns to attack. I think White has a comfortable game. But after the move c takes d5, here e takes knight to d5 can happen, and now we could play even a Greek gift, bishop to h7, after king to h7, something like knight to g5. But I think knight to g5 is even much stronger, because then you provoke again some weaknesses here, h6, and then queen to h5. That's the great attacking move that Beliavsky has prepared here after potential knight to c3, which is the only defensive idea here. Then bishop to h7, king to h8, and now rook to c1 is creating again really some great pressure. I don't see a good way how black should defend this. It's really game over. So rook after the move d5, here bishop to d5 was played, but now Beliavsky plays again this idea, bishop to f6, g takes f6. Again we have forced weakened pawn structure in front of the king, and now comes queen to e3. We want to sneak, of course, with the queen here on h6, where the queen could cause really some problems here on dark squares, and our main goal then after that would be something like a potential rook lift, for instance, if the queen gets on h6, rook to d4, and followed with rook to g4, and even some checkmate threats here on g7. So that's why king to g7. Garry is trying to compete with the king here on dark squares, which is not a good choice. Of course, you want to have your king secured, not like this. Rook to c1, played by Beliavsky. You see how it is easy now for him to find the best next attacking move. He simply continues to push, and you see Garry still hasn't developed 2 of his pieces, which is not good. So far, White's pieces are in perfect attacking harmony. So knight to c6. Here we have bishop to e4. Maybe bishop to b5 is a more accurate idea, simply keeping the pin and then followed with knight to e4 or knight to d4. So in the game, bishop to e4 played by Beliavsky, and we have now queen to d6. If you try bishop takes e4, then queen to e4 will happen. You have to protect the knight with the rook, and then again knight to d4. So that's the main tactical problem here for Garry Kasparov. So that's why he had to escape from the pin with the move queen to d6. And now Beliavsky takes. Bishop takes d5. We have e takes d5, and again we have a similar pawn structure where Garry Kasparov has several weaknesses. You see there, these are clear targets. Also this isolated pawn here on d5. Although White is down some material, down some pawns, but it's a great attacking formation that Beliavsky has built here. So in the game, rook to c4, great again attacking move. You cannot take the queen. It's under fire here on the d file, but still a great rook lift in order to remaneuver the rook here to g4 or to h4, where we can create again some madness. So queen to d7, rook to h4. Here Garry Kasparov plays really the perfect defensive moves, queen to f5, because there is the serious threat, of course, queen to h6, queen takes h7, checkmate. So queen to f5, we're protecting now our h7. So the only thing that white can do now is only one check. So it's not something that you should do. It's time now to include some more pieces into the game. So that's why here Beliavsky, rook to d5. Again, deflecting the queen simply from the defense of the h7. If you take, again, I hope you realize, queen to h6, queen to h7. So knight to e5. Garry is desperately trying here to defend this position somehow. Knight to e5, we have h3. Very nice move by Beliavsky. You have to create for your king some breathing spaces. Knight to f3 doesn't work because you don't have to take with the queen. G takes f3 is simply happening again. The same tactics. If you take the rook, you're getting checkmated. If you go with the queen here, maybe to g6, then you get rook to d4, and it's game over. So great attack really by Beliavsky. So after the move h3, Garry played rook to e8. We have knight to d4. Some discovered attacks again are not possible even here. So wherever you go, still your queen is first hanging with a check. So that's why queen to g6 played by Kasparov, and now queen to f4. You see, with every move, Alexander Beliavsky is getting closer and closer to the king. Great performance, really. Garry Kasparov is simply here on the defensive side through the whole game. So rook from a to d8, we have knight to f5. Again, another simple threat. We have rook, king to h8, and now rook takes d8. Rook takes d8, and now a queen to e4. So rook to h6 doesn't bring you so much because it could lead now into a simplified line with queen to g5, in which Garry Kasparov can trade off the queens, where Garry Kasparov would have then, if this game goes into an endgame, it would be a favorable endgame here for black because we have this 2 versus 1 situation on the queen side. So that's why here Beliavsky plays the accurate move, queen to e4. We have rook to c8, and now king to h2. Very important move to not be threatened here on the first rank. No checks are possible by black. Very important to secure the king first, and now again strike back with some tactics. So rook to c4. But of course, it's not a problem. Here Beliavsky saw everything very well. Queen to a8, first to check. You have to cover with the queen, but now simply we grab a pawn. The activity of white's pieces gives so many chances for Beliavsky because he is not threatened. He doesn't have weaknesses, pawn weaknesses. He doesn't have square weaknesses like Garry Kasparov, for instance, has this dark square problems in front of the king. His king is perfectly fine, so he can make some tempos with the queen without being threatened in the meanwhile. So here rook to h4, knight takes h4. It seems that maybe Garry has managed to simplify the position, but it's really not so. Here after the move queen to g5, again Beliavsky has this in between check, king to g7, and now queen to e4. Here h5 was played by Kasparov, and now knight to f5. Here king to g6, knight to e7, king to h6 was played, and now f4. In this position, Garry Kasparov resigned their work on the queen and the knight, and he decided to resign this game. So great attacking performance by Alexander Beliavsky. I really wanted to show you this game. I wanted to show you against whom really Garry Kasparov played. Incredible player, this guy, and you see now also in the continuation of the quarterfinals of this 1983 candidates tournament that Kasparov had really some troubles to play against Beliavsky with many draws. He had to be on his best to make something happen in a very nice tournament. So, okay, I hope that you enjoyed this win by Beliavsky. I'm not going to show only winning games by Garry Kasparov. Wait when we come to the 1985 finals between Anatoly Karpov and Garry Kasparov. You see many winning games by Anatoly Karpov too. So the shark is also vulnerable when you attack him. So I think this is also great and theoretical game, which shows us how to really beat even if our opponent is stronger, because we have to, as I said in the beginning, we have to be on the attacking side. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. Meanwhile, you can watch my other commented chess games played by Garry Kasparov. Here's the link, and if you want to see the best chess games of all time, check out my best chess games of all time series. link. And if you like this content, you can also subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best of